Hey everybody, back in the shop again tonight, and I'm going to do a video on something a little bit different. I also want to apologize for kicking the crap out of my amp last night. Actually, nah, I'm not gonna apologize for that. I did say a couple of cuss words, but it was kind of driving me crazy. So yeah. I'm not going to throw that amp away. I probably will go find some deoxit. I've got a couple cans of deoxit and try to clean it up a little bit and get it going, because I really do love the Special 112. The PV Special 112 amps are, it was a great amp 30 years ago. So this video, this is all about albums that you must have if you want to be a badass country guitar player, as far as I'm concerned. Like, this is what I listened to when I was a kid, and the stuff that really influenced me big time as I went along, and stuff that I still listen to in the shop. Like, I have a few CDs that I still listen to in the shop. CDs, I know, crazy. I had a record player in the shop for a while. That was pretty stupid, because the amount of sawdust, it was pretty obvious after the first day a record player wasn't going to work. But I had some Merle Haggard records, and not a good idea. Now everybody's got Spotify and iTunes and all this other stuff that you can listen to stuff. A bunch of my albums are up on those too. The problem with Spotify and iTunes and Deezer and all the other ones, like, you can find, if you go on Spotify and search, there's a playlist called B Bender Guitar. That's one that I created, and it's got a few of my songs on it, but it's a lot of stuff that I like to listen to. And there's another one called On a Bender that has like everybody else's stuff on it as well, and a few of my tunes. I didn't create that one; it's just somebody else did. But I still do listen to CDs periodically, and I just wanted to show you kind of the stuff that I've been listening to lately that I absolutely love, and you'll get why in a minute. That one right there. I love this CD. What a Crying Shame by the Mavericks. And Brent Mason is playing his ass off all over this CD. Lots of good licks. I mean, there's a ton of good stuff on this CD. There's a few other ones that this isn't exactly country music, but everybody should have that CD in their record player or in their shop, because is there any better, when did this come out? 1980? 81. That and Journey Escape are two of the greatest, rock albums of all time. Okay. This one right here. I bought this when it came out. Huge Chris Cornell fan, always have been, when I finally discovered who they were. I mean, I kind of grew up with these guys because I'm from the Northwest, and, Chris and half those guys were playing the same kind of like private parties and stuff that I was back in the 80s. Because I had a grunge band or garage band in the 80s called Equinox or Equinox. We called it Equinox. But that was my high school band, and we were like a garage band until we all turned 16 and we could start playing for my dad legally. I started playing for my dad when I was 16 in all the bars, because we could get a liquor control board permit and it would allow us kids to play. And Dad's steel player friend Rick Dunn said, "Hey, Junior, you know what they call a rock picker that plays country?" I said, "No." He said, "Employed." And he was right. Okay, so now to the good stuff. When I was out touring in Canada almost exclusively for all of 1990, 91, this album came out. Okay? Marty Stewart's Tempted. I got this at McKay's Books for $2. This album is chock full of killer guitar. I still keep the actual CD in my shop, because sometimes when I'm listening to music, I want to hear the actual CD. I want to hear it start to finish. I don't want to hear it jumping around from song to song. Kind of like the Chris Cornell thing, man. When you listen to this album, you want to listen to it front to back. You got to listen to the whole thing. And unfortunately, you know, he was gone shortly after that, which is terrible. Because I love Chris Cornell. He's gone way too soon. I'm the same age as he was when he passed. Okay. 5 albums that everybody must have. Emmylou Harris, Luxury Liner. That is like a must-have. You got to have that album. It's got Albert Lee at his finest. Luxury Liner. The B-Bender licks alone on that album. C'est la vie. The solo from C'est la vie was like, I mean, that's quintessential Albert Lee, B-Bender, just killer. 2 More Bottles of Wine. All of the great songs that Emmylou put out. I don't know. That whole Luxury Liner album is killer, though. Poncho and Lefty, her version of Poncho and Lefty is the best version, period. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care if they say Waylon and Willie's, or not Waylon and Willie's, but if Waylon Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson's version is the best, they're wrong. It's Emmylou Harris's version off of that Luxury Liner album. Okay, now, then we got to go to Buck Owens live at Carnegie Hall. Everybody must own that album. If you don't have that album, go get that album. Download that album. Buy the album. Whatever. That's what I'll do when I hear something that I love, like Brandy Clark, 12 Stories, or Jared Neiman and the Hung Jury. When I hear something like that, I don't just listen to the album. Bakersfield was the first album that I ever bought and downloaded the moment that I heard Branded Man. As soon as I heard Branded Man on the radio, I'm like, wow, that sounds like Vince Gill. And that sounds like Paul Franklin on steel. That's killer. Like, did Vince Gill just put out a tribute? Is he on a tribute album to Haggard or something? And then I looked it up. Vince Gill, Branded Man, and I found out that the Bakersfield album had came out. And I'm sitting in the school parking lot waiting to pick the twins up when they were still in high school. And I hit download on Amazon. I bought the CD. I highly suggest everybody do that. If you love the music you're listening to, if it's my music, please buy it, because that's, I'm a musician and I don't get paid for streams. But if you buy the album from any of those sites, then I might actually make something off of the artwork. Okay. Now the next album, this one is super, super near and dear to my left ventricle. I love this album so much, and it's got some of the best playing on it by Steve Hinson. I mean, he's killing it on this album. And also Brent Mason is just killing it on this album. And that's Danny Lee, 29 Nights. And you might not recognize the name, just listen to the record. As far as country guitar goes, and like the perfect steel guitar tone and the perfect steel guitar sound, and everything it's so good. There were so many albums that came out during that era that were just great. Anything from 90 to 95, I would say, 94. Everything in that era was really good. But that Danny Lee 29 Nights, that thing came out in like 1998, I believe. And that's Brent Mason just playing his ass off. The song, If the Jukebox Took Teardrops. I was playing a gig out here in Waverly, Tennessee, where I live now. And I'm going to try to shorten this video so it's not too long. I was playing a gig out here in 1998, I believe. Like, that album hadn't even come out yet. But our bass player, Clay, who I still play with today in Matt Rossi band, Mammoth Jack, Matt Rossi band. That's who we opened for Garth with, was Matt. And Clay. Anyway, the band name was Mammoth Jack, that spawned out of Danny Lee's band, actually, of all things. So this is kind of crazy how this all happened. But we were playing out here in Waverly, and he had the work tape. And whenever you get a major label artist gig, in Nashville, they give you a tape of like 3 or 4 or 5 songs, or they'll give you a copy of the album, or they'll give you some live board tapes if they're an established artist and you're a new musician in their band. They'll give you board tapes to listen to, so you can see how the structure of the song goes, beginnings and endings. This is especially if you're taking over for somebody that is no longer able to play the gig or got fired or there's a family emergency or something, then you'll get a board tape. You know, somebody's recording something off the board. Then you'll know how the songs start, end, keys, changes, any of that stuff. You'll know it. Well, they gave him a work tape of 4 songs. 29 Nights was one of the songs. Another one of the songs was If the Jukebox Took Teardrops. And I listened to that song over and over and over again. And it was probably, after the gig, I think I listened to that thing. It was at least 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I listened to it constantly. I don't know how much beer I drank after that gig, but we didn't have to play the next day. And we just sat there and we were playing Rollins, a place here in Waverly, Tennessee. And there was apartments above the bar, huge dance floor. John Rollins owned the place. Anyway, we were staying upstairs, and Clay Davis, the bass player, he had this tape. I popped it in, I listened to it, and I'm like, how did Brent Mason get away with that guitar solo? It's like, this can't be the final product. There's no way they're going to let him get away with that. Because he was flying by the seat of his pants, it sounds like. I mean, it's the most rockabilly, just throwing caution to the wind, like he didn't even care. It's almost like he didn't care about the solo. It was that intense. I'm like, there's no way this is going to make the record. And I couldn't figure out exactly what he was doing. And then it dawned on me about 2 hours in that it was probably the most brilliant guitar solo I'd ever heard in a fast, up-tempo country song, just by the way that he approached it, attacked it, and there were drum beats and everything where it's da-da-da. I mean, just everything just kind of fell into place. It was, you have to go listen to that guitar solo. Danny Lee, 29 Nights is the album, but it's not just that guitar solo. That's what sucked me in. But then there's all these great songs on there that are quintessential country music, honky-tonk sounding songs. Every song on the album is great. 29 Nights is great. It's got a lot of stuff that's kind of got that Richard Bennett kind of a feel to it, because Richard Bennett produced, I think he produced this one. Yeah, Richard Bennett and Tony Brown. Richard Bennett, he's another great guitar player. He's got a distinctive sound that he was going for. Oh, another album that I have in the shop that I listen to periodically is George Dukas, Lipstick Promises. That whole album is killer too. Also from this era. And another one from somebody who's also no longer with us, tragically, Keith Gaddis. Man, his first album, which I believe was 94 or 95 it came out. Keith was a badass, you know. Anyway, these are all great albums that you must have. But the 5, Emmylou Harris, Buck Owens, Danny Lee, Georgia's Sunshine by Jerry Reed is an absolute must-have. Everybody's got to have that album, because the playing on that. Now, it's not all just like, everybody thinks Jerry Reed's a chicken picking telly guy, or at least if you're just new to country guitar, you think Jerry Reed, he's a chicken picker guy. He played a lot of gut string stuff and a lot of counterpoint guitar parts, which are just unbelievable. And everything prior to that album pretty much was on a gut string. That's when he did Amos Moses, Preacher and the Bear, 8 More Miles to Louisville. Such a great album. You got to have that one. And there's a couple more that I'd like to say to round it out, but you know, you got to throw a Merle Haggard record in there. And Silver Wings, everything on that record. The Sing Me Back Home album, everything on that. The Bottle Let Me Down. I mean, you can't really pick one. So I'm just going to say, for the last album that you must have is any Merle Haggard Greatest Hits album. Just buy it. Like, subscribe, share. I hope y'all like this video.